Hi, this is Inner Whispers, episode 6. I am Alan, and the host of the show. This show will feature always April Crawford, who's a full-body, open, deep trance channel and best-selling author, and Veronica, who is our name for a causal plane entity, who is also technically a best-selling author. So what I'm going to do is hand the phone to April. She'll make a few comments. I'll probably ask her a few follow-up questions that readers have and listeners have sent. And then we will turn it over to Veronica, where I have a number of topics that I will suggest. But, of course, Veronica will talk about whatever she wants. Hold on for April.
Hi, everyone. It's April. This is my turn to talk every week, which I'm always kind of excited about. And it's been brought to my attention that some people were not understanding that how I go to other dimensional spaces when Veronica comes through. And the best way that I can explain it better is if any of you have ever had out-of-body experiences where you lift out of the body and you can move about in the current reality and turn around and see your body behind you, that is kind of what it's like. It's moving into a different frequency. And by moving into a different frequency, I leave my biological body and I move into this higher frequency, which is rather like a travel book or something. I can choose where I want to go. I can choose what I want to experience. And it's all based upon frequency. So I align my energy with a thought in my head of where I would like to go and what I would like to do. And it happens. It's all about frequency, and it's all about aligning yourself to that. And when you're out of body, it's really easy to do. When you're in the body, of course, it's like, well, I don't think I can do that. But I've always been able to do that, and it helps me a great deal because I really don't want to hear what's going on in somebody's reading. I really don't want to hear what's going on with Veronica because it's important to me to keep the whole thing very separate. It's Veronica's time, and then it's my time. And I really don't like blending the two together. Although I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I think it's a purer experience when my energy is not involved at all. So for those of you that were seeking a little broader explanation about my other dimensional travels, I hope this helps.
Okay, April. We get a number of questions for people who want to be channels or explore channeling, and there's so many levels of it. And so they have a couple of questions. One guy, a man named Bill has written in from either New Zealand or Australia. I'm not sure where, but he wanted to know, how do you know? What he really wanted to know is, how does he know what he's speaking is truth and not something that he's just, imagining or making up himself? And that's a common question that a lot of people who are interested in connecting and doing some form of channeling ask. So what do you say?
Well, in my case, it's always been a rather unconscious moment. Even the first time that Veronica came through, I really wasn't aware of what was going on and really had no way of making a judgment call on what was being said or what wasn't being said. What I could say to Bill is, you really got to get out of the way more, and you really got to back up, because when a consciousness comes in, they need to have the full platform so that they can speak and talk about something that you probably don't know anything about. So in my case, it's always been very separate. I can listen if I want to, but I really don't want to. So I would say, Bill, attempt if you can to back up, get out of the way, and don't have any judgment about what's been said. Even if you listen back to a recording, realize that, all right, my body's being used in this way, but that's not me. And we think that the energy that works with you will give you indications and clues about their independence from you.
Okay, I think you also covered his second question, was related about doubt, and I think he gave some pretty good information. Now, remember, everybody is an individual, so everybody's got their own issues. There's many different kinds of channeling, and main thing I think is being able to let go. I've gone through this myself, and I had absolute access to April, absolute access to Veronica, and many other entities and non-entities who wanted to speak through me, and I couldn't do it. I spent a good year working on it. I mean, every day. And ultimately, I decided my place in this relationship is to ask the questions. Because essentially, I was a barroom piano player hanging out with Mozart. And I just said, I'm going to ask the questions. Okay, so I think it's time for Veronica to come in, and I'm not going to do the countdown because I know she'll be here soon. And she is here. So hold on, Veronica. First, I have, some follow-on to last session, some of the, basic concepts I wanted to ask about, and I don't think I covered these. The first word is allowance.
Any lifetime, it's really important to be allowing, to allow energy to come in, to allow dramatics to come towards you and to drift away. When you clench white-knuckled upon your life or upon your daily routine and very stuck with that white-knuckled moment, it's difficult to decide, okay, I'm going to be open today and I'm going to be allowing today. You have to work at it, and you have to have a deep-seated feeling of this is okay to do. And we think many of you, when you're participating in physical linear reality, it's such a volatile place that it's easy to, be a little afraid to be allowing because you don't know what's going to come in. And we'd say if you can eliminate that fear and allow energy to come towards you, we think that you would have a better ability to create your reality more fluidly.
Okay, that actually segues into my next word. And by the way, I haven't discussed any of these with Veronica, and I didn't even know what I was going to ask myself until I started writing down some words. The next word happens to be ability.
All of you are created with abilities. Some of you have more in one direction than maybe another. There is not one of you that's incarnate that doesn't have some sort of ability that makes them unique upon to the planet. We would say it's important to do the self-discovery of what your abilities are. And to decide that, hey, I don't have any abilities, is if you're in a space where you've kind of touched upon maybe some psychic abilities or some healing abilities or some ethereal kind of connection, it's important to decide that you're going to take a good look at it and allow it to come into your daily routine. There is no one incarnate that doesn't have some sort of ability in them. So start looking. If you don't have access to it, make a path to it. Because once you discover what your abilities are, and they could be vast, you're going to have a better physical experience and thus a more expansive experience, and then your soul will grow.
Thank you, Veronica. The next word I had on my list is birth.
Well, oftentimes the word birth is used for the entrance into physical life. But it can also be used as the entrance to your ethereal life. Birth is not just a physical linear term, although that's what it conjures up in your head when you think about it. But you can also be birthed into a spiritual reality, while still physical, that can have great effect and great impact upon you as a human being and as a soul.
Okay, Veronica, as a follow-up, you've had many lives, physical lives, And as you stated, a lot of beings don't incarnate at all. Some incarnate once or twice and hate it and don't do it again. But you've done it many times, which means you've had many physical births. The question is, why would you go through that?
The denseness of the linear reality offers a very vivid experience process. We also would say that it's much easier to leave the reality than it is to get in it, because you're an expansive energy and you decide, okay, I'm going to incarnate in physical form. And no matter how many times you've done it, it's always a bit disconcerting when you make that leap into a physical form, and there you are as a small, innocent child who doesn't have a lot of abilities, and you have to wait to develop them. It can be a bit frustrating because it's not something that happens immediately. It is a gradual process. And yes, we have incarnated many times. We are finished with that cycle. But each time we incarnated, we would say that the most difficult thing to move through was the fact that we remembered exactly who we were, why we were there, and we are in this tiny form that is helpless and dependent upon the two parents that we chose to come into the life with. So it sets up a dynamic right from the beginning of how you're going to make choices and how you're going to do things in a life. And as a young child, you have much time to contemplate how you're going to do that. And any of you who've had children, we think you all can remember looking into the eyes of a newborn babe and seeing a lot of depth there, seeing a lot of wisdom there. Adage in the culture is, oh, it's an old soul. And we'd say, ooh, most likely it is. But it starts out in a physical form that doesn't support that at first. So we'd say being in the reality is quite an experience. We enjoyed the process each time. Some of the times it went well, sometimes it didn't. But eventually you will evolve out of it and will not have to return to it if you don't want to.
Okay, and the good news for everyone is that I'm running out of my list. So the next one, and I think there's only one or two left, is abundance.
Abundance. It is a very popular concept and word. And many of you in physical reality equate that with having money, or with having a lot of stuff, with having a lot of things. And we'd say, all right, in physical reality we can see where one would focus on that, and we can remember focusing on that a bit ourselves. But true abundance is being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable with the reality around you and recognizing the good around you and not just the things that aren't good. We'd say an abundant person, remember the story about the shoes that we told a few episodes ago? It's pretty much similar to that. Abundance is defined by how you feel about things. And sometimes it isn't money. Sometimes it isn't things. Sometimes it's the energy exchange with someone who truly gets you, or the energy exchange with nature as you watch a flower blossom, or watch two squirrels have a political argument over an acorn. Those are the abundant moments. Those are the moments that expand your awareness and give you the opportunity to truly live. Now, we're not poo-pooing having money. We're not poo-pooing having things. They're all part of the human experience. But it is also very important to recognize the small things that are sort of the cornerstone for true abundance.
Okay, and my last one in the series of my list, and these are some I wrote down that Veronica said in different ways a couple of times, and it was, quote, don't look behind you for what you want in front of you, for what's behind you usually wants to grab on and keep you there with it. So, Veronica, could you put a little meat on the bones for that concept, don't look behind you for what you want in front of you? Being
in physical life means you're involved in a timeline. And we have talked to many who want certain things. They want an event to transpire. They want to bring someone into their life. They want to acquire something. They want to be something. And if you get all caught up in the past, it's usually debilitating in your present. And if you're not completely focused in your present, it's impossible to create a future. So you have to decide that no matter what's going on in the past, you can certainly remember it, but you can't let it consume you. You have to make all of your creations based upon who you are right now, not who you were 2 years ago or even last week. Only artist drawing that you have. It's the only palette you have. It's the only canvas you have. And many people that we talk to are tied up in the past moments. Oh, this happened and that's why I'm this way. Or that person did that to me before and now that's why I'm this way. A lot of that stuff in the past, it's there. It will remain there, but you can't stay anchored in it. And you can't create from it. So if you're truly trying to create a reality for yourself, it's really important to take a look at the things you might be hovering in that are from past moments and decide that you're going to be very present. Doesn't mean you forget them. It just means you don't focus from there and you don't create from there, because the canvas is now. The future is going to be created from the canvas you got right now. If you create it from a past canvas, you're going to get more of what the past was. And we know all of you have had moments where you just want to create something new, exciting, and something fresh. The way to do that is to be very present and project forward. Leave the past where it is in the past. If you drag it along behind you like a suitcase, it will become burdensome.
Okay, Veronica, this is a question from Don on our comment section. Does a person always have the same personality in each incarnation, or does it depend on how a person is raised and the experience he has as a child?
The core energy is always the same. If you were to look at an individual and you looked at them through 4 or 5 different lives, you would always see in their eyes the same kind of energy. They might have different physiological kind of moments, but they're pretty much the same personality-wise and energetically. Now, in the course of each life, there are most likely a new set of parents, a new set of circumstance, and that can color and that can contour and sort of shape how things are going to go in the life. But energetically, you're always the same. You could be a male, you can be a female, you can be Caucasian in one life, and you can be African American in another life. To have a full gambit of experience is the goal.
Okay, Veronica, we have a smattering of questions from Seth readers, and for those who don't know what Seth is an entity that spoke through a trance channel named Jane Roberts, mainly I think in the 80s, but became very, very prominent and successful. And a lot of people ask about Seth, and one of the specific questions that we've gotten is, how do you view the difference between you, Veronica, and Seth? And B, do you know Seth?
Yes, we are acquainted with the energy that you know as Seth. The difference between us is that we are more emotionally focused, and Seth is very intellectually focused. So when queried with the same questions, he would come from the intellectual standpoint and probably be a bit more scientific. We would come from the more heartfelt moment, so scientific.
Okay, and I'll just add from my personal experience that a lot of the people who consult with Veronica ask about specific quotes and paragraphs in the Seth books, and there are plenty of them. So anybody who's really into Seth, and probably half this audience doesn't even know who he is, but talk to Veronica about it if you want, and a lot of people do. All right, the next thing, Veronica, is we get a lot of questions about people who are, well, I'll say, curious about what happens to bad people when they die. And I will go further than that and say that most of them seem to be worrying about what happens to bad people when they die, like they're really hoping they get punished in some way. And I'm talking about really bad stuff, worse than murder. I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons people kill people, passion, who knows what the reason, they are insane. But how about people, they're asking really about historical people, like, and I'm not going to mention any names, but throughout history there have been dictators and kings that have, in political organizations, have wiped out a lot of people. They burned them at the stake. They put them in gas chambers, whatever. A lot of people are concerned that they just get off scot-free when they die. And what I normally tell them, and I want you to tell me if this is valid, is that they don't get off scot-free, but nothing happens to them. They do it to themselves, and they get to experience the pain that they caused. Not just that everybody they killed, but of all the relatives of people they killed. And when I say experience it, I don't just mean they're reading a newspaper. They get to fully experience it. Anyway, that's my view of it, and I'll let Veronica either validate or tell me I'm nuts.
Well, we won't call it any sort of comment, but we can tell you this. We know in the culture that when one crosses over, there's sort of a myth where, you're going to go to those pearly gates of St. Peter, and he's either going to let you in or not let you in type of thing. What really happens is that when you cross, no matter who you are, you could be somebody who's never even stepped on an insect, or you could be someone who was a mass, murderer in a lot of ways. There is always self-examination. You are always met by guides, and those guides are ever patient. And if, let's say, you were a dictator type that did a lot of damage, you will come into your contemplative moment and feel the energy that you portrayed. Now, it doesn't mean, like I'll say, if you were somebody in the Spanish Inquisition and you burned people at the stake, it doesn't mean you're going to burn eternally at the stake, but you're going to feel the pain, and you're going to feel the anguish. And sometimes contemplation takes a while, especially if you've overdone the bad part of making poor decisions in the linear. No one gets off scot-free, and no one just dismisses it, oh, well, I just made a few mistakes. It is taken very seriously, and the energy always goes through on an energetic level the pain that they have caused, so that they can have a clear understanding. And in some cases, they may, incarnate into a time frame where they're going to be the victim, so that they can truly understand it on a physical level. So there's no getting off scot-free. There is always hope from Spirit that those who have acted poorly or acted terribly will have an epiphany, understand clearly what they've done, be repentant about it, and want to come back and do some good if they can, to sort of balance out the negativity that they caused. So in retrospect, we say that those who act poorly or make poor decisions, always there is balance to be made.
Okay, Veronica, here's a question from Katie, one that I can personally identify with, and she said, I would like to know more about connecting with my guide and people in general, I guess. I'm not very good at opening up. I wish I wasn't so scared of emotions. What do you say to Katie?
Well, the emotional arena is a volatile one. And we think in every instance, like, say, Katie, she's had some experiences where when she did open up, she was met with maybe hostility or anger or some sort of negativity. So being the inquisitive soul that she is, when she decided to incarnate again, the emotional experience, because ultimately she has a very open, beautiful, loving heart, but doesn't know how to let it go forward. Lots of times past life experience can cause you to, recoil back or stand back from an experience that you really want to create. due to whatever happened in those lives before. We would say, attempt if you can to not be afraid. Attempt if you can to say, I'm going to take a little baby step and open this up a bit. And knowing that it's coming from maybe a past moment will be helpful to you in overcoming the fear.
Thank you, Veronica. This question is from Paula. Thank you for your awesome show. You're very welcome, Paula. I assure you. My question for Veronica is, how do spirit guides feel when the soul in their care commits acts of cruelty, pedophilia, and murder?
There is always great sorrow when an incarnate portrays or participates in something that is considered extremely negative. Guides will do their best to try to dissuade, move, negotiate, say, maybe do something different here. They will always try to do that, but in some cases where you have these items going on, those individuals have usually closed down and shut down their guides. So the guides are sort of left, stranded and not able to reach them, which is even more sorrowful for them. Their only thing they can do sometime is wait and hope to get through, but if they can't, they certainly will get through when the individual crosses over. And then there will be the interview time where everybody goes over what happened in the life that was good and wasn't.
Okay, Veronica, this is the portion of the show when I turn the mic over to you and you can give your message to individuals and people of the world.
We realize that all of you are having very individual experiences. Some of you are fairly adept at creating your reality and things go well on a regular basis. But there are also those of you that sort of get stymied or caught up in dramas of others or negativity and find yourself struggling terribly in the linear reality. It's important, no matter where you're at, whether you're doing okay or you feel you're not doing okay, is to find some appreciation and awareness of what is going okay. We agree that there are some times where it seems like every which way you turn, everything's negative, and it just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. That's when you have to stop, stand still for a moment, and say, all this chaos and all this stuff that's being created that's negative, I don't like it. And I'm going to try to find a sliver of appreciation in here somewhere for one thing and focus on that. Focus on the one thing that I am appreciative for. That's probably the easiest and most effective way to sort of get yourself out of a spiral. And many of you, if one thing goes wrong, a lot of you get caught up in that spiral and you just keep circling and circling and circling until everywhere you look there's negativity. Decide every day to find something to be appreciative or grateful for. And even if you immediately said, oh, well, Veronica, there's nothing in my life right now that I appreciate or am grateful for. Take a look at your health. Take a look at, something you saw today that was beautiful. You have to start changing your perspective if things are all awry and all twisted up. You have to change the perspective, and you're the one who can do it. And finding that one thing to be grateful for, finding that one thing to appreciate, is the good first step. Nothing is insurmountable. Yes, things can pile up, and it seems like everywhere you look, negative, negative, negative. But there's also light somewhere in your reality, and you need to seek it, focus on it, and walk towards it.
Thank you, Veronica. That concludes the interesting part of this radio and podcast broadcast. I'll remind you that if you'd like to see Veronica speaking, you can do so if you search YouTube and just go to Inner Whispers TV. Or if you want to see some of the earlier programs, which were 10 minutes instead of 3 minutes, just search April Crawford on YouTube. And last but not least, if you'd like to get the newsletter, which still continues, even though a lot of people are freaking out because they think these these broadcasts will replace the newsletter. You can get it for free, of course, at innerwhispers.net. Talk to you next time.